Have you ever felt like your baby changed overnight? Suddenly they're more irritable, want to be held more often, put everything in their mouth, and start sleeping worse. And the strangest part is that nothing seems to explain the change. What many parents don't realize is that teething can start affecting a baby's behavior long before the first tooth becomes visible. And that's exactly what makes this stage so confusing. While those teeth are still hidden beneath the gums, your baby's body is already going through changes that can cause discomfort, sensitivity, and noticeable shifts in behavior. That's why many babies seem different weeks before parents discover what's really going on. In this video, you'll learn the signs that teething may be starting, why it affects behavior so much, and what actually helps make this stage more comfortable for your baby. Because once you understand what's happening behind these changes, a lot of worries suddenly start to make sense. Sign number 1. Your baby becomes more irritable than usual. One of the earliest signs of teething is often a change in behavior. A baby who normally seems calm may become more sensitive, more impatient, and more dependent on parental comfort. And that often leads to a very common question. Why is my baby suddenly so cranky? The answer may be right in their gums. Even before a tooth appears, the area starts becoming more sensitive. For a baby who doesn't understand what's happening and can't explain what they're feeling, that discomfort can affect their mood throughout the day. As a result, many babies want to be held more often, become less tolerant of frustration, and seem emotionally more vulnerable than usual. And there's something important many parents need to hear. Most of the time, this isn't spoiled behavior. It's simply a baby trying to cope with a real physical discomfort. And that same discomfort helps explain another behavior that's incredibly common during this stage, the urge to put absolutely everything in their mouth. Sign number 2. Everything goes into the mouth. One of the most common signs of teething is when a baby suddenly wants to chew on practically everything they can get their hands on. While this is a normal part of development, teething often adds another reason behind the behavior. As teeth begin moving beneath the gums, the area becomes more sensitive, and one of the most natural ways to relieve that discomfort is by applying pressure to the spot that's bothering them. That's why many babies start chewing on toys, clothing, their fingers, or almost any object within reach. Not because it solves the problem, but because it provides temporary relief. And there's one detail that confuses many parents. This behavior can begin long before a tooth is actually visible. So it's not unusual for a baby to become more sensitive and start chewing on everything weeks before that first tooth finally appears. What seems like a sudden change in behavior may simply be the first sign that teething has already begun behind the scenes. Sign number 3. Your baby wakes up more often or has trouble sleeping. Few things worry parents more than sudden changes in sleep. Your baby seemed to be sleeping better. Then, seemingly overnight, they start waking more often, take longer to fall asleep, or need extra help settling down. In some cases, teething may be part of the explanation, because gum discomfort doesn't disappear when a baby goes to sleep. Without the distractions of the day, that sensation can become more noticeable. As a result, some babies experience more restless nights during this stage. Of course, not every sleep change is caused by teething, but when it appears alongside increased irritability and a constant need to chew on things, teething becomes a very likely explanation. And that search for comfort leads us to the next sign. Sign number 4. The need for comfort and closeness increases. There's a behavior that surprises many parents during teething. Suddenly, a baby who seemed to be becoming more independent wants to be held more often, seeks more physical contact, and prefers staying close to their parents. What's happening? In most cases, it isn't a regression. It's a search for comfort. Teething can create a constant discomfort that babies can't yet understand or explain. They simply know that something doesn't feel quite right. And when that happens, it's natural to seek out whatever feels safest and most reassuring. That's why many babies become more attached to their parents during this stage. Not because they're becoming dependent, but because the presence of the people they love helps make the discomfort easier to handle. And perhaps the most important thing to remember is this. This increased need for closeness isn't a problem to fix. It's a sign that your baby is looking for exactly what they need most right now, comfort and security. And there's another very common behavior that often appears alongside all of this, even though many families don't realize it may also be connected to teething. Sign number 5. More drooling than usual. You may have noticed this before any other sign appeared. Suddenly, bibs never seem to stay dry, and your baby starts drooling much more than usual. While excessive drooling isn't always caused by teething, it often shows up during this stage. That's because the changes happening in the mouth and gums can increase saliva production and make babies more aware of the sensations in that area. But there's an important detail many parents miss. The drool isn't the problem. It's usually just a sign that something is happening behind the scenes. That's why, when increased drooling appears alongside irritability, constant chewing, sleep changes, and a greater need for comfort, the picture starts to make much more sense. And perhaps the most reassuring discovery for many parents is this: your baby isn't changing for no reason. Their body is going through an important stage of development. And once we understand that, the next question naturally becomes, what actually helps make this stage more comfortable for them? Once you understand the signs, the most important question naturally follows. What can parents do to help? The first thing to remember is that teething isn't a problem. It's a normal stage of development that can bring temporary discomfort. The goal isn't to stop the process, it's to help your baby move through it more comfortably. Age-appropriate teething toys, safe objects to chew on, and a calmer environment can all make a difference. But there's something many parents underestimate: the power of simply being there. Because often, your baby isn't looking for a solution. They're looking for reassurance. And when their body feels different and they're experiencing sensations they don't yet understand, being close to the people they trust most can help more than we realize. When we start seeing teething this way, it stops looking like a collection of difficult behaviors and starts looking like what it really is: another important stage of development. When you put everything we've talked about together, something becomes very clear. Maybe teething was never really just about teeth. The irritability, the sleep changes, the increased need for comfort, the constant chewing, and even the extra drooling may seem like unrelated behaviors. But often, they're simply different signs of the same transformation happening at the same time. A body changing, a brain adapting, and a baby who still can't explain what they're feeling. Maybe that's why so many parents feel confused during this stage. Their baby is trying to communicate something but doesn't yet have the words to do it. So they communicate through behavior instead. And once you learn to recognize those signals, everything starts to look different. The feeling shifts from, "My baby suddenly changed. Now I understand what they're trying to tell me." Because long before words, babies are already communicating all the time. And the more you learn to interpret those signals, the easier it becomes to navigate every stage of development with confidence. That's why you should subscribe to Before Words. Because before words, the brain is already telling a story, and here, you'll learn how to understand it. And there's one interesting detail many parents don't realize. A lot of the behaviors people assume are caused by teething sometimes have a completely different explanation. Because there's another very common source of discomfort during the first months of life that can also cause irritability, crying, difficulty settling down, and changes in behavior: colic. And what's surprising is that many babies show signs of colic long before parents realize what's really going on. So click on the video that's appearing on your screen. There, you'll discover the 5 most important signs that your baby may be struggling with colic, how to recognize each one, and what you can do to help them feel better. I'll see you there.